motion in terms of declaring a climate emergency in October last year, and indeed the appointment of Gráinne Long in terms of Sustainability Commissioner. And I'd also like to thank Brian Heading for having the vision to propose this motion here this evening, and to thank him for the opportunity of addressing you. I did a PhD in Passivhaus in Ulster University about a decade ago, and it's something that's very close to my heart. I think there's a real opportunity here to do something really positive for Belfast and indeed for Northern Ireland. And I've been researching this topic for the last decade in Ulster University and also in UCD. And I think it's really fair to say that we've come a long way in that decade. There are now companies in Northern Ireland who have expertise in this. And it's really timely. You know, I've got 5 things to say really. One is, the first one, this is timely. We should really be talking about this now, and we should be implementing this Passivhaus standard because Northern Ireland actually has the worst building regulations in the UK. They were last updated in 2009, and there's a proposal on the table now to update them to the same as the English building regulations from 2012. So while the rest of Europe is implementing near zero energy buildings, which are really energy efficient buildings from the 1st of January next year, in fact, there's a real fear that Northern Ireland can actually implement building regulations that are really 8 years out of date. So this motion now to consider the Passivhaus standard really allows Belfast City Council and indeed Northern Ireland to actually get the best building standards which are available. And that's the second thing I'd like to say. This is about, I suppose, really standing on the shoulders of giants. This thing has been on the go for the last 25 years. It was Wolfgang Feist was the professor in Austria who came up with this concept of the Passivhaus standard. And 25 years later, it's still perceived, it's still recognised as the leading low energy standard in the world. And it's based on good indoor air quality, comfort, and then thirdly, energy consumption. But actually, as it turns out, it's the lowest energy consuming standard in the world. And lots of regions have done this. Brussels adopted the Passivhaus standard. It was a 7-year program to implement the Passivhaus standard, and they implemented it 4 years ago. So all buildings in Brussels are built to the Passivhaus standard. It's the same for Frankfurt, it's the same for the country of Luxembourg. New York City have adopted the Passivhaus standard as well. So in a way, you know, it's a matter of being informed by what these other regions have done and trying to bring that to Northern Ireland. But there's a number of regions as well in the UK have done this. Exeter have embraced the Passivhaus standard. Bristol have embraced it. Housing associations throughout the UK are adopting this and going forward. But for whatever reason, there is a lack of this in Northern Ireland. We've only got one social housing scheme where they've been rolled out at scale throughout Britain. And that's the third thing I'd like to say. From my own point of view, I've done research on this and I'm just about to publish more research on it to really understand why that might be. And what I've done is I've actually had a look at the extra costs of building to the Passivhaus standard compared to the minimum building regulations in Northern Ireland. And they can be as low as £5,000 for a 3-bedroom semi-detached house. And the really good news is there are 5 big benefits that you get from this. One is that the energy costs are reduced about to a third of the standard energy costs for a 3-bedroomed house. With that, carbon taxes are going to be lower. So this carbon tax is only going to go one way in terms of costs going forward. But this 3-bedroomed house that I've studied, the carbon costs are 1/5 what they are for a standard house. But if people are living in these homes that are designed to be very healthy and have very good air quality, there are better health outcomes as well. So this also contributes to the cost, or to the benefits, to offset the costs. But equally, if people aren't spending money on trying to heat their house, and this heat versus eat dilemma, which is the scourge of society, they have money for spending in the local economy, and there are metrics around how that benefits the local economy. So if you add up all these benefits, all these financial benefits, what you're looking at is, for this £5,000 extra per house, you're looking at gaining between 2.5 times and 4.5 times that investment for the region over a 15-year period. And then if you start thinking about the number of houses that we build, and you multiply that out, and this is a simplistic perspective really, there's more work to be done on it, but really what you're talking about is, over 15 years, the houses that are built now, over this 1 year that's coming, if they were built to the Passivhaus standard compared to the minimum building regulations, you're looking at £100 million of benefit to the province. I'd be delighted to share the paper with you where this is discussed, but ultimately, from my own perspective, the more I analyse this, the more I say, this should be done. This is the right thing to do. We should be doing this, other people are doing it, and we should be benefiting here. But the fourth thing I'd like to say is, like all good initiatives, it may be, simple in terms of a concept, there are standards there, but it's not easy. And Brussels took 7 years in order to move industry, so they actually had the capability of doing this. And this is something we should consider here as well. So while the building regulations are going to be upgraded, it would be opportune to set a higher standard, which is to be achieved in, say, 7 years' time, and to incentivise builders for doing that. And what you'll find is that the builders who can do this and can embrace it and can deliver this, and there are builders like that in Northern Ireland, will be incentivised to go out and do it. This will seed this capability within the industry. And also, I think a large part of why Passivhaus hasn't been adopted in Northern Ireland, and indeed other regions, is nobody's ever been in a Passivhaus. And when you actually go into this Passivhaus and you see it, you say, we should be doing this. I want a house like that. So this is a really important thing, to seed not just the capability within industry, but also the understanding at a societal level of what these low energy buildings can afford us in terms of opportunities. And the final thing I'd like to say, if I may, is that by adopting a voluntary Passivhaus standard in Northern Ireland, Belfast City Council will be building on its strength in terms of the climate emergency which is declared. With the Assembly back up and running, this is a real opportunity to show leadership within the UK, and it'd be the very first council region in the UK to adopt the Passivhaus standard for its people. And there are precedents because Lord Debham, when he presented his report, he's the chair of the Climate Change Committee, he presented his report in the House of Commons in March, and he used most unparliamentary language in terms of the standard of buildings which we're building, and he says we're just going to have to go back and retrofit this building stock that we're building up now. This is wrong. And he proposed the ultra energy efficiency standard for the UK, and this is easily achieved with the Passivhaus standard. So what I'd suggest is that this could be looked at in support of Brian's motion, and that Belfast City Council could really show leadership by adopting Lord Debham's proposed ultra energy efficiency standard for the province. And the final thing I'd say is that there's a financial transactions capital fund which is available and potentially is underutilised currently, and this could be a very good way of matching the extra costs with a fund to pay for it to unleash all of these benefits across the province. So with that, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.